Hello everyone, my name is James Corcoran. I'm running for City Council in District 3. For those of you that aren't familiar with the district, it's northwest Knoxville. It's along Western Avenue. I grew up in Nashville, came to Knoxville to go to school, where I met my wonderful wife, Anya, who's here, and I want to thank her for all the support that she's given me. I believe in the simple value of hard work, which I learned from my parents. I got my first job when I turned 14, taking phones apart in a factory that remanufactured telephones. While I went to a Christian high school that my dad helped pay for by working nights at the Hilton. I want to take those values of hard work to the people, to help people in Knoxville. I'm an attorney by trade. Most of my practice is in juvenile court here in Knoxville. I do a lot of guardian work and representation. I also represent parents and families. I have DCS involvement, so I'm sort of on the front lines of the drug problem that Mr. Christensen referenced. Right now, I've read that in Knoxville, in my home zip code of 37921, there's between 30 and 40 drug overdose calls that rural metro responds to in a week.
Wow.
That's a twofold problem. It's a crime problem, but it's also a health problem. I believe that it's a crime when it starts to affect people other than the drug user. It's also a health problem when we're talking about actually providing help to the people who want it. If you take a look at the recent city budget, we increased our spending 16% last year, and we had only a 4% increase in revenue. That's a problem in a number of ways, but if you look at it with relation to the crime problem we only increased our police budget by 1%. We have a 4% increase in revenue and a 1% increase in anything. A lot of folks in government call that a cut. And if we've got a huge drug problem in the city, which we do, that has the potential to affect everyone. It shows that our priorities aren't matching up with the circumstances that are currently going on in our town. The drug problem has the potential to affect everyone. I've seen it affect, prom queens it can affect anyone. It's affecting our kids. Every day, one of the cases where children are born exposed and addicted to drugs, and that's an expense that carries on in addition to just the horrible effect it has on these kids. Those are problems that we end up having to pay for as a city, as a state, as a county, as a people. Those are children who need extra help when they go through our schools. We put an extra burden on our schools. So I think if we actually start being a little bit proactive in both seeking out through law enforcement the source of these drugs. If we're not increasing our resources that we're providing to our law enforcement, we're not able to keep up with the problem. And it's great to try to provide treatment. I know that the county's made some efforts, with the safety center, which has its own issues, but you can't out-treat heroin. I mean, when I first started practicing law in this area, I never saw heroin case. It wasn't until the past few years that all of a sudden it's been showing up everywhere. The trouble with heroin is the success rate of treatment is so low that if we don't actually if we're not actually out there proactive with the law enforcement efforts, we will not be able to keep up with it. And that's a huge problem. It's a problem for all levels of government. I've had folks suggest that maybe it's not a problem for the city government. It's a problem for all of us. The buck has to stop at each and every level of government is responsible for addressing it. As I was saying, the increased spending this past year by 16%, and we had only a 4% increase in revenue. The last two city mayors have increased taxes in the second highest tax increase and the highest tax increase that we've had in the city. And while there's not been a tax increase this year, when you increase spending and don't have a matching increase in revenue, that's a recipe for at some point someone's going to have to pay for it. And one of the concerns I have is that at some point we might find our next mayor blaming the current administration for why they feel that their hands are tied, that why they would have to raise taxes again. So if we don't start getting this budget under control, we run the risk of, not only we're already taxed very high in the city, we run the risk of that being increased. And as Mr. Love mentioned before, the state legislature, through its Improve Act, has given a number of additional tools that the city might use to take more of their money. I currently sit on the Board of Zoning Appeals that Commissioner Randy Smith appointed me to. In that time, I've seen some kind of distorted things. I saw one business that was basically going to tear itself down and build itself up right next door because that would be outside the county. because it was so much cheaper to be in the county versus in the city that it was worth the cost of rebuilding their whole business right next door. That says that there's a problem. So it's important that we make sure that we elect a field of candidates that understand that we won't continue to see a level of growth in the city if we aren't being competitive with the amount of taxes that people have to pay. We're incentivizing people to go elsewhere. Additionally, I don't believe that government should pick winners or losers. One of the issues that's been coming up on a regular basis with increasing frequency is the TIFs and pilots that have been handed out to a lot of the most wealthiest among us. And to qualify for those TIFs and pilots, these folks have to show up and say, we can't do this, we can't possibly do this unless we get this break, unless we get this special financing. What that says to me is that all of us are taxed too high in the city. If these folks can't do their projects, who's there looking out for a simple small business person who's paying that same level of tax? And while some of these projects might be worthwhile, I mean, they've done a great job of making sure that downtown is better. You look back 20 years, there wasn't a whole lot going on downtown past 5 o'clock. Now the business is there, people are being attracted to downtown. It's time to take a step back and see that, you know, we've pumped the primer, that business can go on, and those businesses will attract other businesses. We don't need to keep giving special breaks to the elites amongst us. It's time to actually start taking a look at other areas of town besides just downtown. The folks down the corridors like Western Avenue, where we've seen our Kroger get closed down, that the people who live down there, their taxes, it's not a fiefdom. Their taxes shouldn't be going to support the people downtown. We need to make sure that our government pays fair attention to each and every single area of downtown. Look at our corridors, look at Western Avenue, look at Chapman Highway, look at Magnolia. While downtown is thriving, all these corridors have been struggling. Look at Broadway. You know, a lot of these places, the only businesses that you see are checking to cash, title loans. You know, we're borrowing from Peter to pay Paul in what we've been doing downtown. It's time to actually take a step back and provide attention to everywhere.